There's a version of self-improvement that looks exactly like strength and works exactly like begging. You've seen the man. Maybe you've been him. He got tired of being overlooked, so he fixed it. The training, the money, the posture, the clipped way of speaking that never gives too much away. He stopped asking. He started deciding. And it worked. But watch him in a room for 10 minutes. He's still checking. Not just her face anymore. Everyone in the room. Who deferred? Who interrupted him? He didn't stop needing someone to tell him he was enough. He just changed who he was asking. It used to be one woman. Now it's everyone, all at once, forever. And there's a second cost that takes years to surface. Somewhere in there, he stopped being able to be wrong. Not unwilling, unable. And when a man can't be corrected, the people who would have corrected him quietly stop bothering. That's the version of alone nobody warns you about. Not an empty room, a full one, where nobody tells you the truth anymore. There are two men who build themselves up like this. From the outside, they're identical. Only one is finished auditioning. By the end of this video, you'll know which one you are. Let's call him John. John spent his 20s invisible. Not mistreated, just unweighted. The kind of man whose opinion gets skipped and nobody notices, including him. So at 31, he did the work. He trained until it showed. He got competent, then loud about being competent. He learned to hold eye contact a beat longer than was comfortable, to be the one who ends the conversation. And everything he read told him the same story. The world is a hierarchy, and you're either climbing it or being buried in it. And it worked. That's what nobody says about this. For the first time in his life, when John spoke, the conversation waited. He was 34 before he noticed he was exhausted. Not tired, exhausted in the way of a man who can't ever stop, because the thing he built is only real while he's performing it. And something else had happened. He couldn't date to any particular week. His oldest friend had stopped disagreeing with him. Not from fear, from arithmetic. Disagreeing with John cost more than it was worth. He was surrounded, deferred to, and nobody had told him a hard truth in about 2 years. Nearly every man on that path has met Rule 1 from Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. It's known across the internet as the lobster chapter, and is possibly the most misquoted idea in the men's improvement world. Here's what the trend turned it into. Lobsters have dominance hierarchies, so nature says be the dominant one. Win. Take the top. Be the top lobster. That's not the argument. The lobsters make one point. Hierarchies are ancient, older than trees, which means your body keeps track of where you stand in one and adjusts you to match. Here's what that looks like in a man. Get overlooked long enough and you start carrying yourself smaller. Shoulders down, eyes down, voice lowered before you've even spoken. People read that posture and treat you the way it suggests, which seems to prove it right, so you hold it tighter. That's the trap Peterson is describing. Not that you're at the bottom, but that being at the bottom is what keeps you there. And then the instruction almost nobody quotes. Stand up straight, Peterson says, in order to voluntarily take on the responsibility of your own life, to face the hardest parts of it deliberately, with your eyes open. It's about how you meet what's in front of you, not how you measure up against other men. Notice what's missing. There's no one to beat. There's no ranking in it at all. Peterson also says plainly that humans don't live in one hierarchy. We live in dozens at once, which quietly destroys the whole idea of the alpha. There's no single ladder to be at the top of. Here's the mechanism underneath all of it. Chasing hands one person the job of deciding what you're worth. Every gesture becomes a bid, and a bid needs an answer. Dominance doesn't get rid of that. It just swaps one scoreboard for a much bigger one. Now it's the room, the rankings, the other men, the number. You've stopped asking one woman to rate you and started asking everyone at once. And that's why John couldn't sit down. One person can actually give you an answer. A whole hierarchy never does, because it never stops updating. There's no final score, no moment where you've won and can stop playing. Both men made the same mistake wearing opposite clothes. Neither one decides what he's worth. One handed that job to a person, the other handed it to a scoreboard that never finishes. If you know a man who got strong and somehow got more tired, tap the like button. It puts this in front of someone who's currently mistaking the second scoreboard for freedom. Let's be careful here because this is where men hear the wrong thing. None of this means the training was a mistake. It wasn't. Getting competent, getting strong, getting paid, learning to speak without apologizing for the space you take up, all of that is good. And a man who does none of it isn't humble, he's just unbuilt. The problem was never the building. It's what the building was for. John lifted so he'd rank. He could have lifted because a body you've disciplined is worth having. He got competent so the room would defer. He could have got competent because doing your work properly is its own reward. Same actions, completely different reason underneath. In the first, every rep is being submitted to somebody for marking. In the second, nothing is being submitted to anyone. That's what Rule 1 is actually asking. Not outrank them. Carry something. Voluntarily. Whether or not it's seen. Now the far end, because this trend has one. A man whose identity is dominance eventually cannot afford to be wrong. Not won't, can't. Being corrected doesn't cost him a point, it costs him his whole identity. So he stops being able to take input from anyone. Then comes contempt for women, for softer men, for anyone who hasn't sorted themselves out the way he has. It gets sold as high standards. It isn't. Contempt is what a man reaches for when the scoreboard has stopped paying and he still needs to feel like he's winning. That's the tell. Strength doesn't need anyone beneath it. A man who's grounded can be argued with, corrected, outperformed, and remain himself. The one who can't has built a position, not strength. And a position isn't something you own. It's something you rent. And the rent is due every single day for the rest of your life. And this is how it ends. Not with a fall, with a slow silence. Everyone who might have told him something true does the same arithmetic John's friend did, and stops. First the correction, then the honesty, then the closeness, because you can't be close to a man you're not allowed to be honest with. He doesn't end up alone in an empty room. He ends up alone in a full one. So here it is, and it's uncomfortably simple. What are you carrying that nobody is scoring? Not what you've achieved, not what's visible, postable, or countable. What do you hold up? A responsibility, a standard, a person, a piece of work that nobody is watching, nobody is rating, and nobody would notice if you quietly put down. If the honest answer is nothing, then the strength is still an audition, and the judging panel just got bigger. Because that's what Rule 1 was pointing at the whole time. Not standing above anyone, standing up underneath something. Carrying the weight is the point. Read the rule again. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. There's nobody else in it. A man who is carrying something real doesn't need the room to notice and confirm it. He already knows what it costs him, and he's paying it whether or not anyone claps. So go back to that man in the room, checking who deferred. He isn't weak. That's what makes this hard. He did the work, and the work was real. He just built it on a foundation that needs a permanent audience. And an audience leaves quietly, one honest conversation at a time. Take the decision back. Nobody is going to hand it to you, and no amount of winning will ever quite add up to it. So if one line in this sat a little too close to home, leave one honest comment below and name the thing you're carrying that nobody scores. And if you know a man who's living this right now, send him this video. He will quietly appreciate your support. And if you want the other half of this, there's a kind of man who never performs dominance at all because he doesn't need to. He's genuinely capable of doing harm, and he keeps it deliberately in check. That's a whole other video, and it's on the screen now. Watch that next. I'll see you there.